But Junior Dos Santos, number 7 heavyweight, defeated number 11 Tai Tuivasa via TKO in round 2. Early on, Junior Dos Santos sort of embarrassed Tai Tuivasa. He would slip, and then Tai Tuivasa would go tumbling, essentially. But Tai Tuivasa's pressure really started to gain him some momentum and gain an advantage against Dos Santos. And for Tai Tuivasa, this was a fight that answered a lot of questions. His last performance left a little bit to be desired, but everybody's going to hit that wall. He came in with such a blaze and won his first 2 fights via KO and TKO, that flying knee, and then the 2-minute win in Australia. Then his first fight in the States, and it's against Arlovsky, so he beat a former UFC champion, but a unanimous decision that left a lot to be desired. This performance left a lot to be desired as well. Let's go ahead and talk about that. That pressure and that power that gave Tai Tuivasa that advantage in the first round quickly became his undoing. He got a little bit sloppy, and he was a little bit sloppy from the get-go. I mean, I mentioned it. Dos Santos had some slips that were downright offensive if you're Tai Tuivasa. I mean, Tuivasa went sailing into the cage a couple of times, just whiffing. So, I mean, that's not something you see a lot of in the UFC. I mean, unless you're fighting like Anderson Silva in his prime, you would see that. But in the second round, JDS caught a couple of combos, and then when Tuivasa got really wild, cracked him with a right that dropped Tuivasa. Junior Dos Santos would move to mount and would quickly finish Tai Tuivasa, but not before Tuivasa tried to strike from his back with Junior Dos Santos is in mount. The only place I've seen that work is EA, or not even EA. It was UFC Undisputed 2009 on the PS3. It doesn't work, Playboys. It doesn't. And he's still young, man. He's been a pro for over 6 years, but he's still 25 years old. Probably will fight again before he turns 26. Dos Santos will be 35 by the next time he fights. But, hey, man, he's still got several years left in him. Here's an interesting stat about Dos Santos. His first back-to-back wins since 2011-12 when he won and then defended the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Kind of amazing to think. Since then, it's been win-loss, 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 win-loss. His first time that he's won 2 fights in a year since 2011. Unbelievable to think that. And he's still there. He's still competing. And he's competed every single year since then. I don't want to say it's like the John Jones method, how he'll still have competed every year, because Dos Santos, while he ran into some issues with USADA, he was exonerated and has still managed to fight every single year. Junior Dos Santos, after this fight, called out Alistair Overeem for a rematch. Alistair Overeem knocked him out 3 years ago. I think enough time has passed there. Overeem is coming off of a very impressive win, too, over an up-and-coming prospect in Sergey Pavlovich. So I think that's funny how their trajectories have led them back to each other. Overeem, who had lost 2 in a row, getting that win last week over Pavlovich, and Dos Santos, we've talked about how he's been at such a high level and even competed for a UFC title last year, but that trajectory leads right back.